Okay, let's now go to the macroeconomic environment. Which is different from the microeconomic environment, right? The macro is the big one, micro is the small one. So this is split into a few parts. So if we look at the first thing, we're going to talk briefly about the different factors of the economy. So if we think at how the economy works, right, or a little introduction on macroeconomics, it is how we look at the national economy as a whole. Right, we look at it as if it was just one big thing, the whole country. It's the actions the government takes to control the economy. At the most basic level. Why would the government, right, control the economy here? Well, for a couple of things. 2, get economic growth measured by GDP, control inflation, the rise in prices, and have a good balance of payment, which I'm going to explain later what that means. It's basically the country's bank account. Now, how do they achieve that? Well, they could use fiscal policy or monetary policy. And we will go and explain all of these topics. Now, why does it matter? I'm just a business, a bakery, so why should I care? And if I put the government here on one side, and I put my company on the other side, let's see how it connects. How does it affect me with all the things that the government does? Well, first, the general economic policy that the government has. Is it expansionary or shrinking policy? For example, demand, cost of finance, taxation. Maybe the industry regulation policy. So, for example, well, your bakery. There will be regulation on the sale of food products, right? You can't just sell anything you want when you're selling food. You have to have maybe some sort of sanitary precautions in your kitchen. Environmental, right? You're not allowed to create lots of waste or toxic waste. Social policy with your staff in terms of employment. employment law, right? You need to give a minimum wage. You can't just fire anybody like you want. And the last one, foreign policy. So things like treaties between countries. So if you're training and you're doing business with another country, you will have laws inside your country that you'll have to follow in order to do that. In an economy, there is what's called the multiplier effect. Oops. Right, to multiply something. What do we mean? Well, this idea, this economic theory idea says when the government injects, so spends, $1 into the economy, it will create much more than $1 down the line. More than $1 is created inside the economy. So this idea is that the government spends on a hospital, builds a new hospital, which will then hire staff and pay wages, and that staff will then spend on a car, and then the car company will pay taxes, and so it goes back. But more value than $1 is created along that circle, essentially. Have you ever heard of what's called the aggregate supply and demand? That's another way to think about this. This is basically the total in the country or the economy. The aggregate supply in the economy, or the total supply in the economy. The total demand, aggregate demand, same thing. So there is a formula for this. So let's quickly go over it. So the aggregate demand equals consumption, people consuming things, plus investment, company in making investments, plus government spending, plus exports minus imports. Let's try and think about this for a second. The total demand in an economy will be whatever people are buying, consumers are buying, whatever we add on top, whatever companies are investing in, whatever the government is spending, and exports minus imports. Whoa. What does it mean? Well, export, the country is selling stuff to the rest of the world. But also, the country is buying stuff from the rest of the world. So let's remove that buying part, right? Let's get the net of whatever sales we make with the rest of the world, net of whatever we buy. We don't want that expense thing. So when you add all of it together, it gives you the total demand of the economy, right? It makes total sense now. And the aggregate supply, you can think of it the same way, but just flip it on its head.